Hey, everybody, we're here for a new episode of Five for Talking. I'm here with Caps, the captain of the show, and we're talking trade deadline recap. What do we think of the trades? Who did well? There will be a tier list, we think, based around who made the best moves, maybe even another re-ranking of the NHL, even though we just did it, but it feels like we should. And the Leafs episode, the Leafs are going to get their own episode probably tomorrow. It'll be tomorrow. So we're going to go into this. There will be no Leafs in this episode. The Leafs will have their complete own episode. For this, we're just talking the rest of the NHL. Okay? So, to kick things off, I think for me personally, I don't know if you agree, I think the beginning of this whole situation is February 9th when Tarasenko got traded to the Rangers. That's like the kickoff point. So
that was a kickoff point. I think the rumor was that Kane was supposed to go, but then they weren't unsure of his health, so they went with Tarasenko instead.
Yeah, so we'll get to that. I think that's a good conversation because we had this earlier. Let's save that till we get to Kane. So the Maple Leafs get O'Reilly in a fantastic trade. So you got to move on a bit. I think another huge thing that happened in late February was the Golden Knights offloaded Shea Weber's contract. And like that might not seem like a crazy thing, but that just dumping that is like beneficial because now they freed up an IR spot to put someone in so they can continue to try and make moves, which they do. And I think that was huge. Senators dumped Zaitsev, which I also think was huge. That was just like take his contract and we don't want anything in return. So now we're getting to where everything changes for me. The Bruins make the trade with Washington, where Dmitry Orlov, Garnet Hathaway, and some prospect, I'm not even going to attempt to read his name, get traded to the Bruins for Craig Smith, a first, a second, and a third. And then the Wild get a fifth to retain contract. What do you think about this trade?
I think it's just added depth for Boston to go on a deep run in the playoffs. I mean, you've added a depth forward and a defenseman. And, to say that Boston needs help is kind of laughable because they already have a deep roster. But, just adding these pieces on there just makes them that much harder to play against. I'm
gonna agree with you because it's just depth. Orlov is a really good defenseman. Hathaway is more just you're bringing in some physicality to be on your team, which, you know what? Hey, what do you lose, right? And at the end of the day, I think they're going to be a tough team to face. Another team that added small pieces that nobody's really paying attention to is the Jets, because they got Nino Niederreiter the next day for a second round pick, which is basically peanuts for a guy who has experience and he can score. You put him on a line with like one of those top lines in Winnipeg, and he's going to get you goals. So I don't know if you have anything for that.
Well, I feel as though that, the reason why it's not talked about that much is because of the fact that the Jets are in the West, and the West has not been as active in this trade deadline as all the Eastern teams. But you're absolutely right. I mean, to add a player like that to your roster, going full well, knowing full well that, you're not going to have that much competition in your conference. Is a key move, and good on the Jets for I think making a great move.
Definitely agree with that. Next, you have the Habs and Stars. Gurianov, who's been really struggling, but he's still young and has a high ceiling. For Evgeny Dadonov, and I think this is a really good trade. It adds a lot of goal scoring ability to the Stars. I don't know if you have anything there, but I think that's just a solid trade.
I think it's a solid trade. I just think they should have done more because they're struggling.
I'm going to agree with that, but at the same time, it's like, take what you can get where you can get it. Yeah. At this point, I think everyone started to get worried because we're still like a full week out from the trade deadline, and so many moves have happened. Like I skipped over a bunch of moves here that are like small moves, but like teams were just like all of the top teams, every single playoff team in the East or a team attempting to make it to the playoffs made moves, and all the top teams in the West made moves. So it's like it was very like get what you can get while you can get it. Jack Johnson to Colorado for nothing really. I think that was a great move.
Key guy. He was there for
Key.
their cup run.
Yeah, and I think that he's a great third line defenseman, third pairing. That adds. They need that. They're a team, a weirdly struggling team this season.
They are.
So here's the big one, and this is like the amount of movement in this trade to me is crazy. I don't even understand how they pulled this off. So the Devils and the Sharks. The Devils get Timo Meier, who was the basically number one guy who wasn't Erik Karlsson that was being talked about getting moved in the trade at the trade deadline. They get Timur Ibragimov, Scott Harrington, Santeri Hitaka, Zach Edmund, and a 5th round pick. And the Sharks get a 1st round pick, a conditional first, Zetterlund, Johnson, Okatik, and Makahamadulan. Wow, that's a name. And a 7th round pick. I don't remember the last time we saw a trade with this many moving pieces that weren't just all draft picks.
I think it was Timo Meier was not going to re-sign with the Sharks. Was that
no?
Yeah. So good on the Sharks for getting rid of a player that would have been very, very helpful to your organization. But, I think they come to realize that he wasn't going to re-sign, so might as well get something back for him. This person is 25 years old and he's going to the Devils, which, who would have thought the Devils would have been doing what they're doing right now? But it just makes the Devils even better now in a pretty stacked Eastern Conference.
You could make the argument that he's the most talented player on this team now. I mean, you can make the argument. There's obviously Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier, but I mean, he's a huge piece. This is not a joke to pick up Timo Meier. This guy is like on the cusp of exploding in his career. So that's a huge pickup, and relatively gave up nothing, right? Like you gave up some prospects and some picks, but they're not there yet. Do you want to win a cup now or maybe win a cup later? You know what I mean? So I think this is what the Leafs did a lot really well, but we'll talk about that in that episode. But it's like good for them. And good for San Jose. San Jose lost this trade, I think, still, but they got what they could get, and fair enough. So we'll move on from that. The Lightning got Jeannot from the Predators, and I think this is a desperation trade, seeing all of the top teams, Colorado, the Leafs, Boston, everyone's making moves, right? New Jersey, the Rangers. This was like a desperation move. We got to get somebody. He's a decent two-way forward. He can score. He had a pretty good season last year. He's still young, but to give up Cal Foote, a 1st round pick, a 2nd round pick, a 3rd round pick, a 4th round pick, and a 5th round pick is absolute insanity to me for this trade. Like crazy.
Yeah, they did give up a lot. But I think they just have to look at the actual situation. And I think the GM got to a point where it's like, okay, well, we still got the skill and talent to go for another run. I mean, they've been to the finals for the last 3 years. And these small little moves, well, I wouldn't call this one a small move, but, Brendan Hagel, Nick Paul, all these small little moves have paid dividends to the team. So, I respect the GM for coming out and saying, hey, we're in a win now situation. We'll worry about the rebuild later on. And we feel that Jeannot helps our team now. Hefty price to pay for a player like this. I think this is his second year in the league. Last year he played very, very well, but this year he's had a bit of a down year. So, going to a team like this, you never know.
I mean, okay, it's not like he has a high ceiling. He is 25 though. It took him a while to get into the league. This is his third season. But it's like he kind of did good towards the end of last year. I'm not doubting that, like, oh, he's not a good piece. I just think to give up a guy like Cal Foote and then also add all of those draft picks, like they better have retained the entire salary, which they didn't. It to me that's where it gets me. And I understand the concept we just talked about it of would you rather win now or maybe win later? I understand that. But this isn't like, oh, we gave you a first and a good young player. You gave a good young player and a crap load of draft picks.
Yeah, I know.
Regardless of where they're located, it's just insanity to me. You could have made this trade, in my opinion, for Cal Foote and the 3rd round pick or a 4th round pick. Like, to give up all of that extra stuff was like they were so desperate to make sure this trade happened before someone else got it. Just take everything.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that.
That, you know what I mean? But I understand the situation.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll skip the Leafs trades there. Oilers, clear salary. Jesse Puljujarvi to the Hurricanes. So I understand this trade from the Oilers' perspective. He didn't want to play there. He wasn't playing well. He was actually playing terribly for how high he's drafted. He's almost on the same no, he's not, because Nail Yakupov was 1st overall pick. But he's in the realm of the one of the worst draft picks that the Oilers have ever made in terms of production so far in their career. What do the Hurricanes get out of this?
$3 million.
I mean, it's like
I mean, another depth piece. I mean, maybe Puljujarvi can play better with being on the Hurricanes and all, but it was pretty clear that Edmonton was going to do something and they need to make some changes. I don't think Puljujarvi was, like you said, Puljujarvi was not working out there, and he had his ups and downs. But another depth piece, I guess, for the Hurricanes that are already a really good team. But I think they want to add somebody because of the fact that Max Pacioretty looks like he may not even come back this year.
Yeah, I heard that he if he does come back, they would have to make it, I think, till the conference finals, Eastern Conference Finals, before he would even have a chance of coming back. And then it's like, I know it's Max Pacioretty, but like, do you really want to insert a guy into the lineup who hasn't played for all majority of the season when your team already has chemistry right before the finals? You know what I mean? Like, it feels like that's a weird time to do something like that.
Tampa does it every year.
Yeah, but Tampa's a weird case. We'll get to that more. So the Wild get Marcus Johansson from the Capitals for a 3rd round pick. We're not even going to touch on that. I just wanted to call it out. And here's the big one. This is where discussion opens up, I think. The Rangers get Patrick Kane and Cooper Zach from the Blackhawks, who get a conditional 2nd round pick, a 4th round pick, Andy Welinski, Vili Puljujarvi, and then the Coyotes get a 3rd round pick to retain salary. Give me a sec here, okay? I'll just, before I even talk about what the effects on the Rangers are, because you already know I have an opinion on that. Chicago got virtually nothing for this trade. To me, I think that's so ridiculous. But the reasoning is because Patrick Kane had a no trade clause. So they had to let him go somewhere where he wanted and basically take what they were willing to offer. It is a rental. and he is older and very injury prone. But I still think the Hall return for Chicago here is so poor that it doesn't even help them.
It's a good point. I can't argue with that point. I mean,
the Coyotes are the winner of this trade. They got a third round pick just to retain salary on a team that's not making the playoffs anyways.
And the Chicago retained salary as well, didn't it?
I think a little bit. Yeah, hold on. Chicago retains 50%.
Yeah.
And the Coyotes take the other 50%.
50 or 25?
Oh, 25. Sorry. Yeah, 25. You're right.
Yeah, this one was a bit mind-boggling for Chicago. For the Rangers, they pick up a superstar player who feels that he's got a little bit left in the tank. Yes, he's injury prone. I mean, he's got a bad hip, but damn, man, lately he's been playing some seriously good hockey. And if they're able to protect him a little bit by doing what the NBA notoriously does, load management. He can definitely be beneficial for a Rangers playoff run. Is there something out there? Have the Rangers done a lot, like in terms of bringing in too many skilled players? It's a possibility, but it's definitely a problem. But we're going to have to see how they are able to handle this problem. Tarasenko, there's a lot of good players on this team, man. There's a lot of good players.
I'm not going to disagree with that, but I'll give you my big issue, which you kind of already know. So number one, you have this team has relatively had probably the most stable lines in the whole NHL this year. They almost stuck to the same lines for the entirety of the season. Like there was very little movement throughout their roster. To make these two trades, you've had to remove two of those pieces off of the team completely because there's no room for them. Okay. Then you had to displace two players that were playing on the top two lines to go to the bottom two lines to fit both of them. And then lastly, neither one of these guys can even remotely play defense or get physical at all because they're both glass. And to me, that's where it affects you, because the Rangers were a team that, if you watch them all year, were very built on the connection between the roster and their ability to put in a lot of effort on both ends of the ice. And to suddenly change it to have now the top two lines both have a guy out there who's not going to contribute for you at all on the other end. And I think that hurts them going into the playoffs, especially because the odds of Kane or Tarasenko getting injured is pretty good. One of them is going to get injured.
So if it was just Kane coming over to the team, would you have felt differently?
Okay, so if it was just one of them, period, I would have felt better. Kane would have been my choice. But like you said before, I feel like what happened was they wanted Kane. They didn't think it was going to work out. Everyone was like planning these moves. They were the first one to pull a trigger on a big move here. But everyone else they knew the league was buzzing and trades were about to happen, as we know, before all the good trades happened before the trade deadline. So I think they were like, let's pull the trigger on Tarasenko. We have a good trade in place. And then we're not even going to look at Kane. And then Chicago came back and was like, yeah, we'll take your really crappy deal. And New York was like, okay, I can't believe you would take this. Here, take it. I mean, you're not going to say no to Patrick Kane, right? But at the end of the day, I feel like the movement in the roster really is going to affect them. Because the first game, they all played together, the new line. They got like skated circles around by Ottawa Senators.
I still think it's going to take some time for them to get acclimated. I mean, it's not going to work overnight. I mean,
it's fair enough.
Same thing happened to the Leafs, but I mean, it's hard to argue those points. You make really, really good points, but I can't foresee what's going to happen couple months from now. You know, I mean, it's they got some weapons, man. They got some weapons, but we're just gonna have to see what they do with them.
I find it a strange situation, but like I said, when you really break it down, you can see why it happened. You didn't want to say no to Tarasenko and then not get Kane. And then you're not going to say no to that deal for Kane. They literally gave up nothing for Patrick Kane. So it's like you didn't even have to include Lafreniere or Capo Caco. So I mean, let's continue
just at the end of the day, I think the Rangers just looked at the situation and were like, shoot, we're gonna have to go up against Tampa, we're gonna go up against Boston or Carolina or Jersey, and you know what the hell, let's get Kane in here and let's get some more scoring. I don't know. I have no idea.
Hey,
I mean, they still got one of the best goals in the world.
If it ends up connecting, who knows? By the way, big goalie fight the other day between was it Dallas and the Rangers? I think it was Halak and the Dallas goalie. Anyways, I digress. Yeah.
We had a goalie score a goal the other day too.
Yeah, that was huge. Okay, no more distractions.
I know, stop it.
The Oilers got Ekholm and a 6th-round pick for Barry, Schaefer, a 1st-round pick, and a 4th-round pick. So I'm just going to give my piece first here. The Predators retained 4% of Ekholm's salary. I don't think this is a great trade. I think it does help the Oilers a tad. It gives them a bit of a shakeup. He's a little bit better defensively than Tyson Barrie, but my issue is you gave up a 1st-round pick, number one. Number two, you gave up a guy, your 3rd defenseman, okay, in your tree of defensemen, for a 3rd defenseman. So what did you really gain in this situation? You basically just traded away the same guy to get the same guy. And maybe this change of scenery is what they want. He is a little bit more physical, but he lacks a lot in the offensive department where Tyson Barrie will make up for that.
They don't need
I just think making that the 2 defenseman trade plus adding a 1st and a 4th on top of the other guy doesn't even matter is where it gets a little bit weird for me.
Yeah, I think it's an overpayment too, but I think they realize that, hey, we don't need any more offensive defensemen. We need defensive defensemen because they don't need their defense to score goals. They got Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl will do that for them.
Which is fair, but Ekholm is not that guy. He's not a Luke Shen, stay at home, park my butt there, and I know that that's all my job is now guy. He's still like...
But it's an upgrade from Barrie.
It's very slightly. But yes, I agree. The Wild continue their rampant move spree. They get Nyquist for a 5th-round pick from the Blue Jackets, which is like, okay. Here's the next big one. The Kings trade goalies. You got Gavrikov and Korpisalo. I know you were a big what's his name? Gavrikov, sorry. You were kind of a fan of him. And Korpisalo go to the Kings for a conditional 1st and a 3rd-round pick. I think this trade is amazing.
For the Kings.
For the Kings. You secured a potentially, and I'll explain why I think it's bad for Columbus after, but you got a really good defenseman, a top 4, and he's young. And you got a goalie who is a starting goalie caliber already in the NHL and has a ceiling to be far better. In turn, you gave up a huge contract and a conditional 1st, which it will be a 1st because they're going to make the playoffs, and a 3rd-round pick, which I think, wow, that's like crazy. And the haul for the Jackets, I don't think is bad right now. They will end up trading Jonathan Quick, and then it kind of makes me wonder what the point of this trade was at all in the end.
I can't speak on Columbus, but I can speak on LA. Good for them. Good for them. I mean, if they weren't a competitor before, they're definitely competitors now, man, because
I think they've moved up. If we redo our thing, they're definitely going higher.
But whoa, was Quick so pissed off about being traded.
Oh man, but listen, Columbus
You gotta do what you
started
gotta
this
do.
new great trend that in the NHL that was like so funny, like absolutely meme worthy. Once they traded Jonathan Quick, they made a whole fake meme of them raising his jersey to the rafters for the Columbus Blue Jackets and posted it on their social media, and it was epic. like I like that because Quick apparently was a huge absolute monster piece of crap to them as soon as the trade happened. He called management and he's like, I'm not playing for you, fuck you guys, excuse my language, and like all this nonsense.
I heard that.
So, and I think that that's not the right way to be, especially at this point in your career, because you're not like, I just don't get it. But that is what it is. Great trade for LA. And we'll move on from that unless you have anything else.
No, go ahead.
The Avalanche add a depth center. And Capitals retain 31% of his salary. Lars Eller for a second-round pick. I think this is another smart move by Colorado.
Yeah.
Just,
I mean, Colorado did this kind of stuff last year, and they're just doing it again this year. And they're just getting ready, man. Good pickup. I mean, there's nothing really else to say other than the fact that Colorado is, slowly putting together a pretty damn good team. And once they get some of their injured players back, I mean, Campo is coming back now. I think he's going to be. I think he might be playing today. I need to check.
I think it's today. I'm pretty sure he plays today.
Yeah,
Saturday.
I need to check. I don't know if Josh Manson came back yet. I think he has.
I don't know about that. I don't know.
But dude, once these players come back, man, look out.
Agreed. Another big trade, I think, that kind of flew under the radar. Shane Gostisbehere to Carolina for a 3rd-round pick. Number one, the Coyotes have like a ridiculous amount of draft picks. Number two,
Chicago.
Yeah, but Chicago got them all in really bad trades, I think. This is really big. Between the two trades they've made so far, I know Puyarvi's just a depth piece, but and the roster they already have, I mean, the Carolina Hurricanes are scary. They are like a very, very fast team. And like
they've been pretty consistent. All these little deals that they've done. I mean, it's really hard for me to comment because it's just the fact is like we don't know if it's enough. We don't know if it's enough going into the playoffs, man, because like I said before, I'll say it again, everybody else around them did some crazy stuff. But yes, you're absolutely right. Good pickup and valuable pickup.
So here's a good one, I think. The Penguins get Mikael Granlund for a 2nd-round pick. Quietly, the Penguins added a bunch of little pieces here. We'll get to some more of them as we go through this, but nice little move. I'm just gonna skip you on this. Sorry. Keep it moving along. Here's a good one. The Sens get Chychrun for a conditional 1st, a conditional 2nd, and a 2nd. And man, the Senators are 7-2-1 in the last 10 games and have won 4 straight and have the easiest next 5 games of anyone in the NHL.
I'll tell you what, I'll try. I'm going to combine this deal and the last one, or just comment on what the Penguins are doing and what the Ottawa Senators are doing.
Okay, I like this.
So Senators are quietly putting together a team of the future. And the fact of the matter is that they're quickly playing better now than what they thought they were going to do in a couple of years. But I don't think the Sens were going into this trade deadline to go for it or putting all their chips in. But getting Chychrun, I thought the Arizona Coyotes were going to ask for a lot more. Didn't seem like they got a lot back for Chychrun because, for the last 3 years, it looked like Chychrun was going somewhere, but they always ended up not doing any deals. But I guess this year was a little different. Good on Ottawa. I think they're just gonna get better. They're just gonna get better, and look out maybe in a couple of years because they're gonna be a hard team to play against. The Penguins, yes, they've done a lot of small deals. They still don't have a chance to do anything this year. Like they're not gonna. I don't think they're gonna win.
They have a playoff chance.
I don't even think they're. I don't even think. I don't even think there's a good possibility they might not even make the playoffs this year. Because you got Ottawa that's on their ass right now. Buffalo's playing well. Washington is the outside looking in. Islanders are playing well. Hey man, it's going to be tough in those 2 wild card spots in the East because some really good teams, man. They've done some really good things in this trade deadline. So
Hey, fair enough. I think that was a really good take on that. The Coyotes again take Voracek's contract for a 6th round pick. Tyler Bertuzzi to the Bruins from the Red Wings for a conditional 1st and a 4th round pick.
I freaking hate this trade. The only reason why they did this trade is because Taylor Hall went on the LTIR and they just got somebody else to come in. That's brutal.
Taylor Hall is supposed to come back, right, for the playoffs?
Of course he is. Yeah. Another Tampa Bay move.
And it's crazy because you have Marchand, Bertuzzi, and now Hathaway. You have 3 of like the biggest pests in the NHL on one team.
Yeah, this team's ridiculous. This team is ridiculous.
I don't even think we need to go too deep into that. That's just what they are. The Blue Jackets continue their flip of terror. This is where it kind of gets weird for me with this specific trade, okay? So the Golden Knights get Jonathan Quick, and that could be really helpful to them going into the playoffs because they're banking on Aiden Hill with Robin Leonard and Thompson being out. But in return,
but Campos, Vegas didn't do anything else.
I know, but their team's already pretty good. They're not amazing, but they're pretty good. Especially like they have Jack Eichel. I know he keeps getting injured, but in return, they got Michael Hutchinson and a 7th round pick 3 years from now. So Columbus, when you look down at the Korpisalo trade now and this trade, they lost huge in these 2 trades.
Oh, definitely.
Like huge. And you gave up a 6th round pick just to get rid of Voracek's contract. So next year, if they're not planning to sign a huge free agent and they already don't know that it's like locked in, this is like, I don't understand what the logic is behind any of these trades.
This team is going to be bad for years to come. Doesn't matter if they got Line and Goudreau on this team. This team is not. They've lost way too much in the last week.
I absolutely agree with you. I don't even want to talk about them anymore. I think this is a good trade. This is what I thought the Rangers should have went for over getting both Patrick Kane and Tarasenko. The Oilers get Bukestad and Cam Dineen for Michael Kashering and a 3rd round pick.
All right, what's your take?
They gave up very little and got back a really solid center, especially because he'll be playing on the 3rd line. He's good at both ends of the ice. He's a good playmaker. He's big and a good defenseman, a good filler depth defenseman for basically nothing.
I'll let you have that one. Yeah.
I mean, you can't. Well, I know you're going to have an opinion on this one. Stars and Blackhawks, Hudobin and a 2nd round pick for Max Domi and Dylan Wells. I think that Domi is a good fit on the Dallas roster, okay? But there's no way in hell, I know he's older and he's having injury problems, but there's no way in hell you're telling me Max Domi is worth a starting goalie and a 2nd round pick.
Just
it has to be salary
trend of the Blackhawks making those really awesome deals.
It has to be a salary dump, though. That's the only thing I could think of. You just want to get rid of Hudobin's contract so bad that you were willing to make this deal. But I think Max Domi's a good fit on Dallas.